Hi, friends. Good morning. How are you? This is my first time talking to Siddharth Deshmukh, a good old colleague, about how to tame the fires at our door. Siddharth, please tell a few words about yourself.
Hi, I am Siddharth. Hi, I'm probably better known as the traveling professor on Instagram and on LinkedIn. Basically, because I travel and I teach. So I teach in various institutes in India as well as in the UK sometimes because my family is out there in the UK and I live in India whenever I'm teaching. So I'm basically moving all about the place. So yeah, that's the two bits about me.
And I'm a wandering dancer. I've been going all around the world with my
Well,
dance of compassion, otherwise
basically,
into leadership training. So I thought we would make a good duet here. So
yeah, I think so.
I remember about 2.5 years ago when we were on the campus at MICA in
Yeah,
Ahmedabad, we
yeah,
talked about your book on change management. And
yeah.
you asked me what would be the best time to do change management. And I said, when in times of crisis. So, what do you think? We are now at in
The
the first
full-fledged
phase.
crisis. Yeah, full-fledged crisis. I think the choice between to die from COVID or to die from poverty, I think it's staring us right at us, right? And the most important thing for us to realize is that all of us were afraid of change. It was like we were all congregating around a swimming pool, afraid that the water is too cold for us to jump in, and suddenly the air itself became colder than the water. So everyone's jumped in, I think that human beings have this incredible ability to quickly suss out a situation and figure out, okay, this time I think the water is a much better option than than the air that I'm around. So I think that if you look at the way in which we've looked at, just taken to Zoom, for example, or taken to webinars and taken to remote working and the rest of it, it's been quite an amazing um, observation to just look at humanity that way.
So both at the individual level, at the personal level, as well as at the professional level, and on the in the corporate front, on especially startups, seem to be suffering the most. Do you have any advice for individuals as well as for people who are running startups or part of startup teams? How should they approach this whole thing? Because so much is changing. There are too many moving parts. What do you recommend people do?
I was reading a book called "The Obstacle Is the Way" by a guy called Ryan Holiday. Now, I don't want to venture an opinion on the book, but I like the title, and I think that's what it is. So we have a huge obstacle in front of us, either as individuals or as startups and the rest of it, and we are trying to figure out ways around it. But sometimes what we probably need to do is just look at the obstacle and figure out a way in which we can either walk through it or walk over it or just face it and face all the consequences. I think we're probably trying to figure out a mixture of both, the way in which I'm seeing it. So if I look at individuals, and if I have to just genuinely give people advice, first thing we must understand is that all of us are not in the same boat. We are all in the same storm, but we are in different boats based upon how wealthy we are, which country we are living in, and the rest of it. So figuring out, I think, what boat we are in and how many holes that boat has is quite the challenge first. And I think the most important thing for individuals at this stage is to just chuck away their existing ways of thinking. Their
Mhm.
existing neural networks need to be completely questioned, and I'm sure that you would agree with me on that. It's easier said than done, but I look at it as an opportunity for individuals, especially for people who can see a YouTube channel or a Zoom seminar like this. This is, they're wealthy enough to be looking at this. This is the opportunity of a lifetime for you to chuck your existing mindset and go somewhere else. For startups, I think it's a little more complex, but I just thought I'll start with the individuals first.
Yeah, no, well, your point is well taken, but what I'm noticing all around me is being with a neuroscience background, I see a phenomenon called amygdala hijacking. In other
Hmm.
words, people are literally in fight, flight, or freeze mode. Some
Yeah.
people are trying to flee and say there is
Yeah.
no problem at all.
Yes.
Some are fighting the system by challenging the norms,
Yes.
challenging the government, challenging whatever. And there
Yeah.
are some people who are frozen. But there is another way. The question is, how do we get out of this mindset of being hijacked by this storm?
Yeah, I think the most probably, I can have a couple of different approaches to it. There are some people who like meditation, so it's quite meditation is always a very useful ally as a process for you to get out of, let's say, your primal brain and get into your prefrontal cortex maybe, and have more rational thoughts coming in, or actually understanding your emotions and your entire limbic system in a much better way. So that's one. The second thing is just being mindful. Even if you can't meditate, if you just think about the movie Groundhog Day, right? It's a very interesting
Yeah.
movie because the context is so weird, because the guy keeps waking up to the same situation over and over again. But it is when the guy himself, the protagonist over here, himself changes, then reality starts moving in different ways around him. And I believe that given the amount of stuff that we've seen on Instagram, people are learning baking, singing, dancing, so many new skills. I think this is a subconscious way of trying to deal with reality by trying to change it in some way. But this is the only thing that they can do, change themselves. And I think this is like a force shock for humanity.
Very true, very true. In fact, you're right. I mean, there is very little we can change about the situation. The governments of each country are trying their best, and so are NGOs, so are non-profits that are trying to support people. But
Yeah,
there are limits on how much the environment can change. Every time we get up from
yeah,
even an afternoon siesta, we're back
yeah,
in Groundhog's Day. And the
yeah,
question is, how long? And then yeah, there is that time to change. Are there any specific tips you can give based on your ideas in change management? How that people can deliberately do this? Right now, I see people thrashing. In other words, like I myself, one day I'll be doing singing, another day dancing. But
yeah,
if you want to do it in a very concerted way, in a
yeah.
systematic way, there are obstacles. Yes. How do we navigate with these obstacles or through these obstacles into the next level of evolution? Me as Shankar or you as Siddharth or a
Yeah.
company, how should we do it deliberately?
I think probably if you look at the way in which we are thinking, we have become curious. So that's a good thing. In general, whatever I'm observing, we've become curious, but the curiosity is leading us to all kinds of places now. And while
Exactly.
that's a good thing, I think curiosity also needs to be connected to other parts of the way in which you can think. So you need to be able to resist your curiosity in a certain place. You need to
Mhm.
actually connect your curiosity to your long-term desires. You might also want to connect your curiosity to a place of giving to other people. So it's like how you connect curiosity with other ways of thinking, I think becomes key when you're trying to marshal all the curious natures that we are all showing. The second thing that I'd also say is, and this really helped me, is to set a very disciplined morning routine. And
Mm.
I cannot emphasize it more, because what tends to happen is that in the morning it's like a fresh start, and you have no idea how the day is going to unfold. But now, because of this lockdown business, you have an idea. And if you can actually put in some self discipline around your morning, have something, clean your room, just work out a little or do something, but have a sort of pattern to your morning. I think you end up starting, you know having a bigger sense of worth for yourself for the rest of your day. And if nothing else, at least your morning has gone well. So I think these are some of the thoughts that come to mind immediately.
Yeah, I mean, I have been doing that. I've set one room as my office room, or at least one corner as my office, and one as an exercise space, and
Yeah,
one where I do my dance studio. And
yeah.
by doing that, essentially, I feel like I'm going from one place to another. If I want to pretend like I'm going, I do a few circles around the block, and then I come back saying, okay, I'm now back to work. And then
this is
sometimes I
this
wear
is
a
where
tie.
Yeah, absolutely. This is where we miss virtual reality, right? Put on your headsets and you know but
Switch.
we are where we are.
That's great. At least every single day has a new start and a fresh
Yeah,
start at
yeah,
work or whatever we set out to do.
Yeah.
And then how about the recurring thoughts that we get about, oh my God, what will happen? Will I be able to raise money? Will customers come? This is where the hijacking is. And
Yeah.
having had a good start, say with exercise, with our daily routine, and then starting the day, what would be the next steps so that we don't hijack ourselves again and again recurringly?
I think the biggest thing, Shankar, is to kind of forgive yourself if you have been hijacked for a while. Because let's face it, I mean, you are supposed to be sad if somebody in your family dies. You'd be a complete psychopath if you're not sad. So you're not supposed to be perennially happy. You're supposed to feel a glut of, or a whole gamut of emotions, right? So it's very natural for us to be hijacked by our amygdala, as you correctly pointed out, and have these recurring negative thoughts. The key is how quickly you can actually be aware of it and say, okay, I'm going to have a pity party for the next 10 minutes, but then I'm going to go back to trying to do something useful. Sometimes becomes more productive than trying to fight those feelings and say that, oh no, I'm going to muscle through and the rest of it. That's just my view. I think everybody finds their own ways as well. I mean we are human beings and we are intelligent, and we shouldn't forget that.
And what about teams? Let's say if I have a small team and I may not be able to hold on to the big teams or with fundraising, but
Yeah.
in a small team, how do I keep the motivation on? As well as if I cannot pay the full salary or the full income, or if we're not getting customers fast enough, do you have any suggestions on how to manage these kinds of transitions? Because I see it everywhere.
I think that what the Airbnb CEO did was very good. The way in which he handled the firing of so many employees, but yet created a better brand for Airbnb at the end of it through his communication and through his actions was, an example which all of us can learn from. I know it's not a small team or small company, but if you look at even smaller teams, what you can figure out is, number one, just be honest. Be honest with yourself and be honest with everybody else, saying, look, pals, this is not working. This is what I can do to the best of my ability, and I'll help you, and the rest of it. So that's one part, being human, right? In fact, Shankar, I want to share something with you. Imagine if you were an alien on this planet, right? And imagine that you had the special ability to see the virus, okay? And you could observe the human race as one, and you could actually observe this dance between the virus and the human race and how it's progressing and how it's not. What you could probably see would be something very beautiful, and you would actually see how either how well the human race is, fighting against the virus or avoiding the virus, or how poorly or clumsily it is managing itself. And I think this is a big testing time for us as humans to figure out how best we can help everybody else around us. But having said that, I just wanted to complete one thought. I'm not very sure about reducing everybody's salary, because that perhaps is a good option for the morale to be kept up, but it is quite possible that that will tend to inefficiency and ineffectiveness. I think probably I would try to retain the people that really matter to my organization. I know I'm sounding like a ruthless capitalist, but trust me, I'm coming at it from a very gentle place. What I wanted to look at was, okay, so this is a time for you to actually figure out what's really crucial and core to your business and approach it from a strategic perspective and figure out, okay, so these are the people that I really need for the core of my business to work through. And these are the people that are not going to be really useful, because these were just in peaceful times, these were the additions. And I would actually create a plan like the Airbnb guy did to actually be rid of them. Now this will actually help those people, especially if done in a compassionate way, uh, to find better opportunities, to find better alignments with companies when the whole thing comes up. And I'm very sure of the fact that we are going to bounce back. So I'm talking about it from an optimistic perspective.
Yeah, yeah. In fact, because of the situation, I decided to cut my own hair because it was safer than going to a barber shop. And people tell me, "So, are you going to cut your hair the rest of your life?" I said no, because don't you see? It looks like rats have chewed on my hair. So the moment it is safe, I'm going to go back to a barber shop. So it's
Yeah,
not like all barbers will go out of business, but
correct.
that is
And
the
the
fear
best
that
ones
many
will
people
survive.
have.
Yeah, and the best ones will survive. I actually think that the way in which people have conducted themselves as individuals and themselves as businesses before the virus has hit them is going to play a long, and big starring role in the way in which they either recover or fail after the virus. So this is a great example for us to actually do the right thing all the time.
That's true. It's all about relationships in business. My question is,
100%.
given that people have time, and
Hmm.
yes, they can work on themselves, they can
Yeah,
learn new skills using social media, they
yeah,
can have better relationships with immediate family that they are with, or if they're alone with
sure.
themselves,
Yeah.
how can they cultivate relationships, new relationships? As that's part of the whole business cycle or even the relationship cycle. People are sitting at home like you and me, and now we
Yeah.
are trying to relate to our audiences here by just
Yeah.
sharing our thoughts. Are there
Correct.
other ways in which people can really connect with new people, or is this the wrong time to do so?
I think that people are, what I noticed was that the more digital we have become because of this forced lockdown thing, the more physical we want to be. And this
That's
is very
true.
strange. Yeah, it's a very
That is
strange
true.
phenomenon because what tends to happen is that we think, oh no, everything's going to go digital, and the whole non-personalization is going to happen. But we are all wanting to be physical, right? So in this case, what we will notice is people would go the couple of steps additionally in order to reach out. So I actually think this is a great opportunity for you to be able to connect with strangers, but don't do it like an idiot trying to get business when the guy doesn't have any money in the pocket. Make sure that you build lasting relationships and give value first, rather than try to extricate value from somebody who's already suffering. And that's what I feel is very important.
Can you give any examples? Like, I'll tell you what I've been doing. I've
Sure.
been noticing that people need to learn English. So I've been
Yeah.
offering English classes for people with
Perfect.
foreign languages.
Perfect. No, this is the perfect example. I think that I had a webinar yesterday on the future of education. And I had the CEO of Upgrad talk about, was one of the guys I was talking to. And what he said was very interesting. They noticed in Upgrad that people were not going in for the hard skills, but people were
Yes.
going for the soft skills. And this is a very interesting phenomenon because it's contrarian, because you'd think that, hey, you double down on learning Python or something like that, but that's what people do in normal life, right? Now they're figuring out, oh, okay, I always wanted to know how to improve my communication with my colleagues, and this is the time to go to maybe say a LinkedIn learning and do that. And that's the shift that he's seen in the way in which people are reacting to actually learning and improving themselves, and even creating relationships which are new and exciting.
And do you know why that's happening? Because I was very surprised by that. I was willing to offer a class on conscious business and leading social
Yeah,
enterprises. And they said, but first we need to learn English. Could you just tell us how to talk informally in English? And the next was, how do we share our music from different cultures around the world and talk about it in English? So why is there such a huge resurgence in soft skills? Is there something
I
that's an
think
impetus?
if I have to think deeply about this issue, and I can give you my view, I don't think it's a fully formed view, but I think it's got something to do with the exploring of yourself and your dreams, okay, which we normally can't do in busy lives. So I think that is playing a big role, because when something like this happens, you take a long, hard look at your life, and time is of the essence. Eventually, the only currency is time, right? And if
Yeah.
time is of essence, then you say, okay, what am I doing learning this nonsense? I always wanted to learn the guitar. Okay, so I'm going to do that. And probably there's a lot of that happening, and especially probably in the first world. Maybe the situation might change if you look at, say, people wanting to better their career or something. A place like India, for example, you might find a different sort of perspective.
Well, actually, I was surprised to find that places like India, Brazil, Pakistan, Mexico are
Well,
all eager to learn from each other and connect to different lands. And yeah, I was just not able to exactly make sense. But now, yeah, people are sitting at home. They want something that gives certain meaning to their life, and
Meaning.
that's not exactly Python. So
No,
it's probably conversing with people, learning
yeah,
about
no,
experiences.
you're right. The Python isn't meaning. Python is a skill, right? I mean, it's good,
Yeah,
good,
it's very
to know
functional.
and very functional. But
And there
meaning
are no
is,
jobs waiting there right now. So instead, learning to converse, learning music. I
yeah,
know people giving ukulele classes and all that.
yeah,
So what you're saying is it is a meaningful step in the right direction, even
yeah,
if it may look like a distraction right now, but it is giving something that's long-term useful to people.
yeah. I think so.
How
I
about
think,
companies? How about companies that have slowed down? Let's say in the transportation business. If you were the CEO of a company that is
yeah,
currently slowed down, how would
yeah,
you approach your engagement with employees, or how should employees kind of reconnect with each other?
yeah. No, I was just thinking about how every industry impacts the other. Right now, I think the entertainment industry is badly jacked. I mean, the cinemas and the theaters and the malls and everything is equally jacked, right? Let's accept that. So if I have to look at, in a situation where both supply and demand have kind of gone down, how do you deal with something like this, right? And I feel that unless and until there is an see, right now governments are opening up lockdowns, but the virus has not opened up the lockdown. Right?
And no chance of slowing down yet.
Exactly. Because the lockdown becomes marginally effective after a few months, the governments will open up their economies and the rest of it. But the virus would be there and people would be reminded of it. So it really depends upon the way in which, let's say, if I was a company in any sector which has been impacted, this is a great opportunity for me to actually look at first principles of profitability, of purpose, of meaning, as you said, of doing things well, doing things better, doing things in a completely new way, rather than saying, hey, I was doing Uber and now suddenly nobody is traveling on road. So what the hell do I do? Do I give discounts? Discounts are not going to help, right? It's not going to help. So we will need to figure out our own innovative ways. And trust me, I think that a lot of companies are going to die. A lot of industries are going to die. And I think it's a good thing for churn to happen. I know that it impacts a lot of people and it impacts a lot of jobs immediately. But I think that that's a fact of life. And instead of a gentle wave wherein churn happens, we are now suddenly seeing a sharp, the point of churn. And that's exactly
True.
what. Yeah,
True. And I mean, yeah, this change has been pretty abrupt, but essential things like basic need for food,
yeah,
water, clean air actually has gone up. And
yeah,
basic need for good hospitals, nursing
yeah,
services, people taking care of the elderly, those actually have gone up significantly more. The
yeah,
question is, and technology, we need better Zoom, we need better
yeah,
YouTube, we need more robust systems. There's
yeah.
no slowdown there at all.
Yeah.
Yeah, economies are looking all over the place.
Yeah, I think
Cash
this is a
balances,
wonderful, yeah, this is a wonderful time to actually reflect upon, because if you see today, the medical practitioner is more valuable than Brad Pitt.
that's true. That's true.
And this has never happened. And I've always wondered how come a heart surgeon doesn't have more value than say a Brad Pitt. And it has always, mind, but those were times of peace. And this is a very, very different time. So I think that the relative value of different professions is going to be very different.
Yeah, yeah. And I'm so grateful that we have had this conversation. Anybody watching, please get back to us, ask any questions. We would continue this discussion in various forms because I think it's such a necessary discussion. Siddharth, you have been such a great help, and I've always enjoyed walking with you. So we are
Oh, yeah.
virtually walking together now on different continents. Me from
Yes.
Mexico, south of in North America, and where are you right now?
Currently, I'm in Pune, India,
Pune,
hoping for the
India.
lockdown to open so I can go to London.
Exactly, exactly. And I'm waiting to go back to either India or San Francisco, whichever opens up first. But again, these are exciting times. It is very easy to wallow in self pity
Yeah.
or pity of all the things that are going wrong. But it's, I
Yeah.
think, more productive to take the next few steps, sharpen our skills, connect more deeply with the people that we already know and care for, and
Yeah,
also open up connections with others and do those
absolutely.
things that we've been postponing, because there really is not much more. We cannot just keep postponing our life. So
You
this is
can't.
the time. We've all become each other's captive audiences. But this is the time to really dig deep and do something more meaningful. Any other last words before we close today?
I just think that it's been a pleasure to interact with you like this, and an interaction like this is the kind of stuff we would have never seen if
Yes.
if this virus hadn't hit us. So I would say, if you look at this as an opportunity instead of the crisis and the chaos that it can create, then there is no fire at the door. What there is warmth, and you just need to make sure that you use it well.
Wow, that's a great reframing from the fire at the door to the warmth at the door. And if there is fire, use it to light your lamps and continue, huh?
Exactly.
And
Exactly.
is it okay to share your contact information on any channel that I
I'm
post
I'm
this to?
Yeah, I'm the traveling professor on Instagram and on LinkedIn. That's the best way to reach
And
out.
can people directly contact you on LinkedIn or on Instagram?
Of course they
Great.
can
And the
send.
same with me. So I'm going to share it on both and maybe even on Facebook. And
Yeah,
really, we mean business. We really want to be there for each other. This is my life, the dance of compassion, as I call it, on a
all the
leadership
best.
trainings. And
Yeah,
I think that's what you do too. And this is how we connected. So thank you, everyone. And please join us again next time.
wonderful. Thank you.
Let me see how to turn off. I've never done this.
You'll need to do a little bit of editing, I suppose.
Yeah.